All right, so there I was scrolling the internet, looking at you guys' comments and stuff in a recent video I had uploaded, and it was actually on the 3 biggest lies America told me. And of course, you know, I'm kind of just skimming through the comments and whatnot, and I get a notification. And I look at this notification and I could not believe what I saw. Now, I very well could have not made a video on this, but it was too good to not do, because I could not believe the stuff I was seeing on Reddit was in my comment section. Well, a fellow American decided to leave this lovely message. All this is just appeasing to Euro-poor cope. Europeans cannot comprehend how rich us Americans are. Huh? You can make $150,000 annually working in a gas station or as a bartender. Well-paid lawyers and software engineers in Germany only earn $50,000. They live in squat little houses, have no AC, and have no freedom to speak against their government. Life is miserable in Europe. They all want to live in America. You only saw the tourist Disney stuff. And not gonna lie, I took that personally, because I'm like, I made it a mission to look outside of the typical tourist spots in where I visited, mostly Germany. And I'm like, okay, well, there's no way they could be serious. But I thought to myself, there are a astronomical amount of people that think just like this individual in America. It's not most people, but it's a large enough chunk of Americans where that's normal. That type of mindset is normal. So instead of ignoring this comment, I decided to post this on my community tab on my YouTube channel, and I hit you guys with this statement followed by a question. You'd think this was just a classic case of rage bait, but unfortunately there are a large chunk of people who think like this. How would you respond to something like this, aside from ignoring it? Obviously, because this comment was so outlandish, most people would just straight up ignore it. But because this mentality is so common, I wanted to hear from you guys how you would respond to somebody like this in the midst of a conversation you were having with an American. Because copium is a real thing. And I just don't believe many Americans believe that their situation is as bad as it actually is, because of how our government has orchestrated the facade that everything's perfect, nothing's wrong, life is just life. Now, I'm not saying everything's horrible in America, but I am saying that I feel like we're being shorted in a lot of departments, obviously. And there are just little things and lifestyle isms that make life a bit more difficult than we actually realize in America. And it's eye-opening when we hear these varying opinions from other countries looking from the outside in. So there were a lot of interesting comments from you guys, and I wanted to go over that today. And from you guys directly watching this video, what would your response be to that particular statement? Because it's ridiculous. First of all, where in the world in America are you getting paid $150,000 to work at a gas station? Okay, because wherever that is, you need to put me on. That is a lot of money to be working at a gas station. Secondly, I don't even think many of the people that would have had the opportunity from other countries to go to America, knowing what they know about America, would have even taken up the opportunity of getting a $150,000 job in the United States if they had the choice between, let's just say, Europe and the United States, simply because there are a lot of not great things that come with that. You don't get vacation days. You definitely get very bad health care, and the education system, if you had any qualm about going into the education system and affiliating yourself with that, is a bit ridiculous. Needless to say, the cost of living is also skyrocketing as well. So a lot of wild fronts, but you can make an infinite amount of money. So, I mean, it all depends on what you want at the end of the day. But let's go ahead and get into these comments, because this first comment I thought was pretty fucking funny. As a European, let me assure the poor soul that I am just fine with staying outside of America. Again, I've made so many videos about this, and it's becoming very apparent that America's perception worldwide has done a complete 180. People are keeping a far distance away from the United States as of right now, even fellow Americans that are abroad. I'm currently living in South Korea, and a lot of the people that I'm here with in South Korea are like, hey, how long can we stay out here? Just because, you know, things look a little hostile in the States right now. But that could just be my messed up perception of what's going on. In your opinion, do you think I'm overreacting, or do you think that America's kind of taken a weird turning point and maybe not for the better as of right now? Because I mean, with all of the moves, policy changes, and enemies that America has made this year alone after the new administration, it seems like every single person is on edge. I mean, literally, I have to limit notifications for news and all of those things, because it just seems like every day is another step forward to a possible global conflict instigated and initiated by the United States of America. It's just better currently to just be overseas and explore the world. There was never a better time. Anyways, our next comment says, you have to put the cost of living into this equation and get valid data. First, you don't make $150,000 in a gas station, at least not if you're the owner of the gas station. A cloud native DevOps engineer has an average annual salary of $128,000 in the United States, while in Germany, he earns the average of 68,500 euro, $80,000. So we roughly earn 2/3 of an American salary while having a lower cost of living. Food in the United States costs 36.8% more than in Germany. Rent is 44.8% lower in Germany. Internet costs are nearly double in the US. Childcare costs are 81.8% higher in the United States. The only things that cost less in the United States is clothing by 27.1% and public transport by 30.7%. But this is just a question of what you get for your bucks. And not to forget that my salary already includes healthcare costs, unlimited sick days, 30+ days of holiday, and every hour over 40 a week is paid extra or additional free time up to an absolute limit of 10 hours a day. A resting time of at least 11 hours between shifts, 35 hours resting time on the weekends. We have up to 3 years of parental leave that can be used partially by father and mother. We have better social security and much more. So no, comparing Germany to the US, I would never want to work in the US, even if they would pay me 3 times the salary I earn here. That is a beautiful comment, and it highlights everything that I've been saying over the last few months, maybe even years. Yes, we objectively probably do get paid a lot more on average for what jobs we have in the United States versus a lot of other countries globally. But our cost of living is also very pricey, and our lack of healthcare, or at least quality healthcare, is telling. Because, I mean, every single American freaks out when they have to go to the hospital. They sustain some kind of injury and they're terrified of getting put in an ambulance because they know that that ride alone, even if it's only a minute long, can run you $10,000 plus just to get to the hospital. That's not even the bill that you accrue while you're staying in the hospital. Perfect example, I just watched a body cam video recently of a girl that was getting hit on by her boyfriend. Boyfriend was putting hands on her, right? And the cops showed up, she was injured, and the cops are like, okay, we're gonna take you to the hospital. And the first thing she said, which was incredibly sad, was, no, please, I don't want to accrue a hospital bill. I can't afford to go to the hospital. Please don't take me there. And they're like, oh, we'll worry about that later. The cops kept saying, we'll worry about that later. We'll worry about that later. And she was more concerned about the bill she would have to take on than the threat that was literally ruining her life and possibly on the verge of ending her life. So that's the state of affairs of what's happening in the United States currently right now. And it's scary. It's very scary. But let's move on to this next comment from one of you guys, which says, laughs in affordable healthcare and education. Hey man, couldn't have said it better myself. I knew that comment was gonna get packed up to high heavens, and you guys are cooking. This next comment says, the only time I wanted to live in America was as a child. Then I learned of restricted freedoms, tax system being bad, stores not showing correct prices, healthcare and their two-party system, public transport being lackluster, and other stuff I fail to remember now. I'm happy not being in the USA. There are a lot of really good points that this comment brought up. One of them being the two-party system in the United States, which is ever so aggravating. I feel like a lot of people now are shying away from the voting system altogether, aside from the fact that people feel like the government in general is corrupt when it comes to voting. But the fact that both sides feel very extreme and people have opinions that align more in the middle, right? They might have some American Democratic values and some American Republican values, but there's not a party that represents those ideas that have a chance at winning a presidential seat. And it's crazy because, of course, the Republican Party and the Democratic Party in the United States of America is rooted in old money. So obviously the other parties, there are other parties that do exist, but they don't have a fighting chance at all. In fact, it's to the point that all the members of the House of Representatives are either Democratic or Republican. That's it, because I guess The logic is it's kind of a waste of one of those representatives to be a third party when the majority of people in the United States are Democrats and Republicans. So it's pretty much just like a throwaway individual. It's scary stuff to think about, especially our old voting system with the Electoral College and whatnot. I understand why it exists, but it is used in a really odd way, to say the least. That's enough yapping from me. The next comment from one of you guys says, since literally every sentence contains a false statement, I guess correcting him would be an optimal route and challenge him to provide sources for his claims. Also, people that use the word Europoor are typically beyond saving. Agreed. Very, very valid point. Again, for the people who are watching this video, what would you tell this individual in the comment section if you talk to this person or someone like them in person? Because you can ignore it, right? But imagine having a conversation with someone, with another American, and that is the response they give you. They're like, you guys actually want to live in the United States so bad. Like, you guys complain about your country, and you desire to live in the wonderful United States where absolutely everything is perfect. We have little to no issues, and we have the best of everything. #1 in the world. You know, what would your response be to that? Because it is very interesting seeing all of your different perspectives, and I promise you there's people reading these comments that are from the United States, like myself, and it's very enlightening because I learn new things from you guys all the time, and it is also equally hilarious. Our next comment says, bro thinks Europe is the Soviet Union. LMAO. The dude thinks that everybody in Europe lives in mud huts and, you know, can't function as a society, and they desperately are begging on their knees for America's help to get even a tenth as civilized as the United States is or whatever. And I'm just saying that in the most sarcastic way. That's fucking hilarious, bro. It's crazy. Again, that delusional comment is exactly what is reflected in the country. Like, there's a lot of people that believe that we are leading the world in every department, and that the statistics that contradict that delusional statement are falsehoods and propaganda. And I'm not sure if I just dropped the video that I worked on last week already or if it's yet to drop, but one of the statements that somebody made from America was that Europeans are more susceptible to propaganda than Americans. And I'm like, huh? Whew. But, you know, we won't get into that. Let's move on to this next comment, which says, you know what's wild? I would turn down this so-called USD $150,000 job if it existed to continue being broke in Australia. That's how much I don't want to go to the US. No, thank you. A lot of our systems are corrupt to the point of no return, almost, it seems. One of our biggest issues I keep screaming to the high heavens about is gun control. Now, I'm not saying remove guns from every single person in the United States, because that's clearly not going to solve the problem, but we have a big problem, and it is a glaring issue. We have D1 crash outs, okay, all over the country, people that are irresponsible, that own weapons, that put other people in danger, let alone our police system is very skewed in a way. There's some states where the police are allowed to go absolutely ballistic on you, do whatever the heck they want for the most part. There's other states where they're way too lenient. And then, of course, there is a general distrust for how the police officers navigate in America. Now, some of them do phenomenal jobs, but more often than not, there is a public disdain for police. But I think that's a worldwide thing as well. I could be wrong. How do you guys feel about your police wherever you guys live? I'm pretty sure the sentiment probably is not as hostile as it is in the United States, but I could be wrong. As an American, I would like to know what gas station is paying its employees $150,000 a year. I don't even make a third of that right now, and I work at a grocery store. I would want to go work at that gas station. Listen. I share the same sentiment. I've gotten used to the United States. I'm all the way over in South Korea, and I think I make a pretty decent living here. But if I, or when I eventually move to the United States, if that gas station's still offering that position, we could hash something out. I'll figure it out, okay? Me, walking back to my squat little wooden hut after getting dirty water from the village well. I hope my 78 children survive the winter this year, or we may have to trade our cow for beans again. Look what you started, bro. Look what you started, man. Good God. Dude, it's crazy because I low-key, when I look at that comment right now, maybe the person deleted their comment. I'm not even sure if you can search comments like that in the comment section, but I promise you, that comment probably got so much flack after I posted it in my community tab, bro. Like, God. I just needed to see for myself what kind of diabolical responses you would have to someone that had a similar sentiment. Because I'm telling you, this mentality, it looks like rage bait, but that's really how a lot of people from the United States think. Now, are there people like this globally that feel the same way about their own countries and they outwardly project onto other countries? Absolutely. But we're talking about the United States right now. As a German, I would like to comment on this, but I have no freedom of speech and my tiny mud hut has no internet. Oh my God. Well, how did you fucking post that? Nah, man, that's funny as hell, man. Y'all are crazy with these comments. Our next comment says, he's never been outside the US, obviously. I'm an American and don't live in the US anymore. I haven't even been to visit since my parents died. I'm very comfortable with my life. I don't live in Europe, but in the Middle East. I live in a 9-bedroom home. My office uses the ground floor and pay around $750 US. Find that in the United States these days. The US has declined so much. I have 4 brothers and a sister. One of my brothers moved out of the US 5 years ago and is happier living abroad. He also gets more for less. My daughter and her husband have toured Europe extensively and loved it. Yeah, all the places they've stayed had AC. Okay, I know, that was a dig at the AC thing I was saying earlier. But yeah, AC, fire, I ain't gonna lie. I love me some AC. But something interesting that this individual did mention is that they live in a 9-bedroom house that costs $750 US monthly. That's literally unheard of in the United States. Oh, we call it the homie hookup, man. If you give somebody a killer deal, it's gotta be a friend of yours, you know what I mean? So you give them the homie hookup. You got a nice little lake house or something like that, and typically, if you put it on the market, it'd be like $4,000 a month to rent out to the regular public. But your friend's like, hey man, can I like rent that place from you for like a year or something? You give them what's called the homie hookup. And instead of it being $4,000 a month, it's $750 a month, man. Homie hookup. You guys learned a little something today. But it's crazy because I have witnessed over the last few years the perception of the United States sharply decline. I've also noticed in the same breath the level of propaganda that has been spread throughout the United States as in regards to travel has increased exponentially. The sentiment that we have everything we could ever want and need, why would you need to travel outside of the United States, has been echoed sentiment, and it's scary because pretty much suppresses people's curiosity to explore what other countries have as far as like, okay, cool, these countries have these basic rights, these basic needs that are fulfilled, and they don't have to ask twice. They just do it, right? They just do it. And I think that us looking into what we have right now in the United States and kind of just accepting everything for what it is abominable when you look at the fact that healthcare is a right and not a privilege in most other countries. There are obviously countries that feel differently, but most countries around the world feel the same. Like, the people deserve to live prosperous lives, or at least have a system that takes care of them. Now, do these other countries have different types of issues? Of course. That's every single country. You're not going to go to a singular place that is problem-free. But there are basic human rights that I feel like the world gets that America just does not have. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a classic. They live in squat little houses. Yeah, at least we can afford them. No freedom to speak against our government. Not that is something guaranteed by the EU and Strasbourg Tribunal, not at all. And life is miserable in Europe because I said so. Also, they want to live in America. Nah, never wanted to live in the US, like ever. Again, it feels like a long time ago, there was more of a desire to travel to the United States, of course. And then literally it seems like that has shifted over the last like 5 years or so. And I'm like, oh God. Here's a different question, and I've asked this a few times in the comment section, but I kind of want to vocalize this here. Do you think there's any possible way the United States can come back from what's currently happening right now? Because it seems like we've dug ourselves in a crazy deep hole. Let's get into this next comment. I just tell them, thank you so much for proving just how right we are about our beliefs about US Americans. They just can't help embarrassing themselves. It's like some sort of humiliation kink. Hey man, it's all we got right now in these times, man. If you can't beat them, join them. You know what I mean? But listen, there was a strong desire in me to not want to learn about anything outside of the United States a long time ago. And I think the older I got, the more curious I became about the world. And of course, obviously through YouTube as well, I'm like, oh my God, like I have audiences from all over the world and whatnot. And it'd be cool to kind of look into what those different countries have as far as as like, customs and courtesies and exploring the different languages, the music, the pop culture stuff, whatever. I think it's cool because you really get to understand people's thought processes when you take the time to learn about other places. And then you have a better idea of why the policies are the way they are in other countries, especially when you look deeper into the history of different places and the relations with the neighboring countries over there versus where you are. Anyways, our next comment says, this dude is special, LOL. First off, what bartender is earning $150,000 a year in America? LOL. Let's see. In Denmark, McDonald's workers earn over $22 an hour as base pay. They get 6 weeks paid holiday. If you are sick, you are sick. You don't have to worry about getting fired or using your sick days. And if you get an illness that needs medical treatment, you aren't gonna have to sign your whole family into debt or potentially lose your house. England's pretty much the same. If I'm sick, I'm sick. Place I work will pay me full pay for 6 months, half pay after. They cannot fire me for being sick. I get a year's maternity leave if I want it. I get 28 days holiday, not including bank/national holidays, Christmas or Easter. I pay national insurance each month, which I never even noticed. That means I'll never see a damn medical bill beyond basic prescription charges, which is £9, if that. That's it. If I didn't work or couldn't, I wouldn't have to pay prescription charges at all. I'll never have to choose over a roof over my family's head or my life or the life of someone I love. And that is the very harsh reality of the United States, man. Medical costs are egregious. I mean, to afford and not worry about medical bills, you have to be making 7 figures, okay? 7 figures. Because even people with 6 figures complain about how expensive healthcare is, okay? It's insane. It's crazy too. The sicker you are in the United States, the more of a hole you dig yourself in, because it's like, okay, you need to pay this ridiculously high bill. And in order to do that, you need to work hard because your insurance only covers a certain amount. And you work hard and you become even more sick. And it's just this weird Ouroboros of problems, right? We just keep eating ourselves into oblivion and we just die. My answer would be, want to come with me and look at it yourself? Then visit some nice little towns and villages to demonstrate that even our backwater life is better than theirs. It makes a lot of sense. I can see that. I absolutely can see that. And it's crazy because I do think that even still, people will be like, nah, man, I could never do that. What scares people, right? It's almost like skydiving. Traveling is synonymous with skydiving for most Americans, right? If you're comfortable where you're at, right, and you're used to where you're currently living at, why would you take the risk to travel anywhere else? Especially if people have fear-mongered you into staying in place. I told y'all about the story my grandmother told me growing up. She said if I went to Germany, my kidneys would be gone. I'd wake up in a bathtub full of ice, missing kidneys if I ever traveled to Germany. Okay? And I made it back and forth to Germany with my kidneys in my body, at least for now. I'm surprised he didn't pull the communism card on us. Yeah, you're right. It's a default answer a lot of Americans have. Oh, it's that you guys just have commie laws and blah, blah, blah. I don't believe in that commie stuff. And I'm like, oh my God, bro. This is crazy. But y'all lit that man up in the comments, man. Y'all lit him up crazy, as you should have, because that was a wild, ridiculous comment. And the crazy thing is, that person, the user, had just dropped the comment. If you look at the timestamp, it said posted 2 minutes ago. And I'm like, ooh, it's scary times right now, guys. And I do find your comments humorous, enlightening, and definitely eye-opening for sure. And I hope it does the same for other fellow Americans as well.